My name is Savannah Miller. I'm 27 years old and live in Portland, Oregon. Last Saturday, while sipping champagne in my tiny apartment, I watched my sister Claire's wedding fall apart in real time. Not just emotionally, but publicly, disastrously, and irrevocably. Claire and I have always had what people call a complicated relationship. She's 3 years older, and for most of my life she was the golden child. Straight A's, prom queen, valedictorian. If I got a B+ in school, Claire had already published a research paper. If I joined the school band, Claire had mastered 2 instruments by the semester's end. We shared a room growing up, and our sides couldn't have been more different. Hers was pristine color-coded bookshelves, framed certificates, even a candle that was never burned but always dusted. My side looked like a Pinterest board gone rogue. Paint-splattered canvases, tangled fairy lights, half-finished journals, and dream catchers I never finished tying. "Why can't you be more like Claire?" became the unofficial family anthem. My mother would sigh dramatically whenever I showed up to family pictures with green nail polish or thrifted jeans. And Claire, she would just stand there in her perfect dress, smiling that smile adults loved. But I knew that smile. It meant I win again. Despite that, we did have good moments midnight, talks about boys, crying together during our parents' separation, the occasional late-night baking disaster in the kitchen, but they were rare islands in a sea of quiet rivalry. Then, out of nowhere, the wedding invitation came. A thick ivory envelope, calligraphy so elegant it practically screamed money. Inside was a handwritten note. "Hope you can make it home for my special day. I saved you a bridesmaid spot. Brittany is my maid of honor, of course." Brittany, her friend from college. I'd known Claire for 27 years, but sure, of course, Brittany got the crown. I should have laughed it off, but it stung more than I care to admit. Still, I swallowed my pride. I picked up the phone, and that's where everything began to unravel. When I called to say I'd be honored to attend, the conversation started out polite enough. But like so many things in our family, it didn't stay that way for long. Claire launched into details about the bridesmaid dresses custom-made, blush-colored, very form-fitting but flattering. I laughed and asked if they came in my size. That's when Mom chimed in, her voice on speakerphone cool and clipped. "Well, Savannah," she said, "the dresses aren't very forgiving. Maybe you should try that diet I sent you last month before the fitting." There it was, not even 5 minutes in, and already I was being weighed and measured. "Mom," I said, trying to stay calm, "I'm not crash dieting to fit into a dress for one day." "Well, Claire wants everything to be perfect," she replied. "The photographer is very expensive. These pictures will last forever." Something inside me snapped. "Fine," I said, my voice rising. "I won't ruin your perfect photos with my imperfect body. I'm not coming." There was silence on the other end. Then it clipped, "If that's your decision," and the line went dead. I hung up and cried for an hour. That night, Dad called. He's always been the quiet buffer in our family, the peacemaker caught between my mother's expectations and his daughter's stubborn hearts. "I know you're hurt," he said, "but maybe you can just watch the wedding online. We're having it streamed for relatives who can't travel." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I agreed, partly out of guilt, partly out of relief. No dress fittings, no judgmental glances, no questions about why I was still single or why my job in art education wasn't stable enough. Just me, my laptop, and the woman I still called my sister. I could support her from a safe distance. At least, that was the plan. The morning of Claire's wedding, I woke up earlier than usual. Maybe it was nerves, maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted to feel included, even if I wasn't there. I could have stayed in pajamas. No one would see me after all. But something about watching my sister's big day from my couch in sweatpants felt too sad. So I got dressed. Navy blue cocktail dress, light makeup, even curled my hair. It wasn't for anyone but me. Then I set the scene. I strung some fairy lights across my bookshelf, pulled out the champagne I'd been saving since New Year's, and arranged a small spread of cheese, strawberries, and chocolate on my coffee table. I placed my laptop right in the center, connected external speakers, and lit a candle. If I wasn't going to be at the wedding, I'd bring some ceremony to my space. "To Claire," I said, raising my glass to no one, "may your day be as flawless as you've always tried to be." The live stream was scheduled to begin 30 minutes before the ceremony. I clicked the link at exactly 2 p.m., champagne flute in hand. Nothing happened. I refreshed the page. Still nothing. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I was about to text my cousin when suddenly, the screen flickered to life. There it was, the country club garden Claire had raved about for weeks. Rows of white chairs lined the manicured lawn, each tied with a soft pink ribbon. A floral arch dripping with pale roses sparkled in the sunlight. It looked like a bridal magazine had exploded in the best possible way. Guests began arriving. I recognized a few of my mom's college friends, our great-uncle Hank, who still wore suspenders to formal events, and the neighbors who used to babysit us. Everyone looked elegant. But something felt off. Claire's side of the family sat mostly to the left. Ryan's family tanned, tailored, and obviously wealthy dominated the right. No mingling, no laughter, just polite nods and stiff smiles. Then the camera cut to the bridal suite. Claire sat at the vanity, veil in place, a makeup artist touching up her lipstick. She looked stunning, absolutely stunning, but not happy. Claire's smile in the bridal suite was the kind she wore when she was trying too hard to look calm. I knew it well. Her eyes kept darting off camera, her posture too straight, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Behind her, bridesmaids in matching robes buzzed nervously like bees around a hive. Brittany, the maid of honor, was glued to her phone. "Everything okay?" Claire asked sharply. Brittany flinched. "Just checking the time. We're good. Right on schedule." They exchanged a look, one I didn't fully understand yet. But something was brewing. I could feel it. The camera switched to the groom's suite. Ryan stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his tie. One of the groomsmen handed him a glass of amber-colored liquor, which he downed in one gulp. His best man clapped him on the back. They laughed, but Ryan's smile was hollow. Then, in the background, I saw Ryan's mother, Patricia, impeccably dressed. Ice blonde hair swept into a chignon. She was in an intense conversation with the wedding planner, pointing at her watch, clearly agitated. The planner nodded rapidly, scribbling something on her clipboard. The stream glitched. For about 15 minutes, I lost the feed. When it came back, the guests were seated and music had begun to play. I watched the bridal party process down the aisle, bridesmaids in soft blush, groomsmen in classic black tuxes. Brittany walked alone, clutching a bouquet that probably cost more than my rent. Then came Claire. She stepped out on our father's arm, radiant in a dress of lace and crystal. Her train flowed behind her like a river of silk. Two flower girls adjusted it with careful hands. She looked breathtaking. But again, her eyes told a different story. She wasn't looking at Ryan. She was scanning the crowd, especially his side, like she was searching for something or someone. I texted our cousin Lily. "Claire looks stressed. Is everything okay?" Lily's reply came fast. "So much drama backstage. Tell you everything later." The ceremony continued. Readings, a song, a sermon about love and compromise. I watched Ryan take Claire's hands at the altar. For one moment, I felt it, that pull. That ache of not being there, not standing beside her. Even with all the tension, she was still my sister. And I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the wedding she had imagined at all. The ceremony wrapped up without any major hitches, at least on the surface. The pastor pronounced them husband and wife. Ryan kissed Claire with the kind of enthusiasm that felt just a little too much for a traditional crowd. Then they turned hand in hand and walked down the aisle as Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore. But I couldn't relax. Neither could Claire, from the look on her face. As guests filtered toward the reception area, the camera followed the wedding party to a picturesque bridge where formal photos were being taken. The photographer arranged everyone with practiced precision, Claire and Ryan in the center, families on either side. And that's when it really hit me. There was a line, an invisible one, running down the middle of the group. Claire's family on the left, stiff and strained. Ryan's family on the right, polished and perfect. And Claire and Ryan stood right on the fault line. "Closer, please," the photographer called. "Like you actually like each other." Awkward laughter. Brittany stood slightly apart, checking her phone again. A groomsman leaned in, whispered something to her. She shook her head and stepped away, face pale. And then the audio caught something unexpected. Patricia's voice. "I still think the orchids were a waste," she said to no one in particular. "No one appreciates the difference, and they'll die before dinner." My mother replied, audibly annoyed, "Claire wanted orchids. It's her wedding." Patricia sniffed. "It's our son's wedding too, and we paid for the flowers." Claire smiled through it all, robotic, frozen, but her eyes bounced between them, trapped. Another glitch hit the stream. When it came back, guests were settling into a grand ballroom that looked like it had been lifted from a movie set. Chandeliers sparkled, table settings glimmered, the cake stood 8 tiers tall, adorned with sugar roses. But it wasn't just the flowers or the tension in the air. There was something else. Brittany was speaking to someone near the entrance. A server I didn't recognize handed her an envelope. She opened it, read something inside, and went pale. Then she bolted toward the wedding planner, whispering urgently and pointing toward the door. I leaned in, heart thudding. Something was about to happen, and no one, especially not Claire, was ready for it. The DJ's voice rang out over the clinking of silverware. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore to the dance floor for their first dance. Claire and Ryan stepped into the center, surrounded by candlelight and camera flashes. The Soft Notes of Perfect by Ed Sheeran began to play. They swayed slowly, gently. Claire looked up at Ryan with searching eyes. He smiled down at her, but his gaze kept shifting toward the entrance. Then the music ended. The DJ spoke again, and now a special surprise arranged by the groom's mother. Claire froze. That wasn't on the schedule. Patricia stepped forward, beaming. Marriage is a journey full of surprises, she began sweetly. Speaking of which, there's someone very special who wanted to celebrate with you today. Claire's face lost all color. From behind the ballroom doors, a woman appeared, tall, blonde, wearing a red dress that screamed defiance. It was the woman from the slideshow. Danielle. The ballroom went dead silent. Claire's bouquet trembled in her hands. Ryan stood paralyzed. You invited her? Claire whispered to Patricia. I did, Patricia said calmly. Danielle's been part of our lives for years. She understands our family, our legacy. Claire turned to Ryan. You said it was over. It is, he stammered. She showed up. Your mother invited her. On cue, the lights dimmed. A projector screen dropped from the ceiling, and Bruno Mars's Marry You began to play as a slideshow of Ryan's life appeared. But the picture sifted. Danielle began appearing. First in college photos, then at parties, then, unmistakably, in a Christmas photo dated just months earlier, Ryan kissing her cheek under mistletoe. A ski trip, a beach day, more images, more proof. The final slide was Danielle holding a handwritten sign, Congratulations, Ryan. Call me when you're ready for the real thing. Love always, D. The room erupted. Claire didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her eyes said everything. Danielle stood just a few feet away now, completely unbothered. Ryan looked ready to melt into the floor. Patricia folded her arms, proud and unapologetic. And me. Sitting 1,000 miles away with champagne in hand, heart in my throat, watching it all unravel one photo at a time. It was the clearest view of betrayal I'd ever seen. The screen froze. 1 second, Claire was standing in the middle of the dance floor, her face a mix of rage and heartbreak. The next, stillness. No audio, no movement, just the image of her holding her bouquet like a weapon. Ruskan, Lana Ryan? I stared at my laptop, blinking, tried refreshing. Nothing. It felt surreal, like the entire internet couldn't bear to process what had just happened. For nearly 5 minutes I sat frozen too. Then, finally, the stream sputtered back to life. Danielle was fully inside the reception hall now, arms folded, red dress glowing under the chandeliers. She looked like she'd won something. Claire, on the other hand, was done playing nice. You knew, she said, her voice calm and cutting, addressing Ryan. He didn't deny it. Brittany appeared beside Claire and handed her the envelope from earlier, the one she'd received at the entrance. Claire opened it, scanned the contents, and gasped. Hotel receipts, she read aloud. You've been meeting her this whole time. Ryan tried to protest. It wasn't like that. Claire's voice rose. Private like our marriage, or private like the prenup you didn't tell me about until yesterday? Gasp echoed. My cousin texted. She didn't know about the prenup. Ryan promised to tear it up after the ceremony. Claire was unraveling years of manipulation right there in front of 300 guests and me, through a screen. Then Ryan's father stepped in. That ring, he barked, pointing at Claire's hand. It's a Whitmore family heirloom. It stays in the family. Claire didn't even hesitate. She yanked the ring off and hurled it across the ballroom. It missed Ryan's head by inches and landed with a splash in the champagne fountain. The room exploded, glass shattered, guests screamed. Claire's father pushed Ryan's dad away from her. The DJ ducked behind his booth. Patricia grabbed the wedding cake knife, probably not to use it, but still. The image was jarring. And in the middle of it all, Claire stood tall in her now wrinkled dress, mascara smudged, shoulders squared. She wasn't broken. She was awake. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 6:43 a.m. It was a message from Claire. "Need a favor. Do you still have the live stream recording?" I did. As soon as the stream froze the first time, I'd instinctively hit record. Maybe it was the artist in me, maybe just gut instinct, but I'd captured the whole mess. From Daniel's entrance to Patricia's confession to the slideshow and the aftermath. Claire called an emergency family meeting later that day. We connected my laptop to our parents' TV and played the recording back in clips. My mom's face went pale. My dad paced in the kitchen, muttering about lawyers. "I'm not releasing it online," Claire said firmly, "but this is leverage." Later that week, her lawyer arranged a sit-down with the Whitmores and their legal team. Claire insisted on being there in person. "I need to look them in the eye," she said, "not as their broken bride, as myself." The meeting was held in a sleek office downtown. Claire walked in without makeup, hair in a low bun, and wore a navy pantsuit that made her look like a senator. Calm, controlled, unshakable. Patricia started the moment she entered. "Claire, we're all very concerned about your emotional state." "Stop," Claire said, not angry, just clear. "We're not going to pretend I imagined what happened." She laid out her terms. "I don't want your money," she said. "I want 3 things. 1. A public apology to my family. 2. All wedding gifts donated to the women's shelter I volunteer at. 3. My teaching position reinstated with a letter of recommendation from your foundation." There was stunned silence. Then the Whitmore's lawyer leaned forward and spoke quietly to Patricia and her husband. After a tense back and forth, they agreed. Claire signed a mutual non-disparagement agreement, not silence, just closure. When we left the building, she turned to me in the elevator and smiled. "I think that's what freedom feels like." I believed her. 6 months later, Claire moved to Portland. She found a job teaching at a progressive elementary school just 10 minutes from my apartment. The same woman who once mapped out her future based on dinner parties and charity boards was now hosting reading circles under trees and finger painting with second graders. We started a new tradition: Sunday dinners, just the 2 of us. Sometimes we cooked at my place. Other times, we'd try a hole-in-the-wall restaurant and talk about everything but weddings. One evening, over a glass of wine, Claire lifted her glass with a smirk. "To catastrophes," she said, "the ones that turn out to be rescue missions in disguise." I clinked my glass against hers. "To sisters who find each other again in the wreckage." She smiled, a real one this time. "You know, I never thanked you, Pearlie." "For what? Watching your humiliation in HD from my couch?" I teased. "For being my witness," she said. "Everyone else was too close, too wrapped up in sides. But you saw everything clearly, from a distance, from love." Her words stuck with me. Claire wasn't the same woman who'd once chosen image over honesty, and I wasn't the family disappointment anymore. I was the one she called when her world crumbled. Last week, she signed up for a photography course, the same one our mother once dismissed as a distraction. "I'm not trying to be anyone's perfect wife or perfect daughter anymore," Claire told me. And for the first time in years, I believed her. Because the truth is, we weren't just watching a wedding fall apart that day. We were watching a facade collapse so that something real could finally grow in its place. Have you ever watched someone's perfect life fall apart, only to realize it was the best thing that could have happened to them? Claire's wedding was supposed to be the beginning of a beautiful chapter. Instead, it exposed the lies holding everything together. But from that collapse came clarity, honesty, and a chance to begin again, this time on her own terms. If you've ever rebuilt yourself after betrayal, after pressure, after pretending to be something you're not, drop a comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories of strength, clarity, and redemption. Sometimes, distance brings the clearest view.